Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I have the pleasure of starting us off today. So as usual, we have the Q&A live. So if you have any questions during the presentation or the Q&A, just pop it into the Q&A and then I'll read the question aloud to my two guests today. So for today's agenda, I'll start by just setting the scene for why we're here, and just give you a bit of a brief intro to the current situation and just kicking off the 2025 with a bang. Thereafter, I'll present our two guests today, and then we'll jump into the Q&A to ask my guests these questions that I have, or any questions that you might have in terms of getting ready for 2025 and what's to come in terms of data points. And then in the end, let's just dive into the coming webinars. All right, so let's get going. So just setting the scene for why we're here today. We all know as of now, we are very much hit by the EU legislation coming our way, knowing that we've both already seen legislations, but we know that there will be other legislations heading our way, either directly to the brands that we work with, or of course with the trickle down effect that we also see, where the larger companies are asking for all of these different information and data points from all of you guys. It all stems from sort of the sustainable textile strategy that was launched in 2022, and this is sort of the groundwork for all of the legislations hitting the textile industry, with a great focus on different areas to ensure that the textile industry really ups their game in terms of sustainability and circular principles. Now, this is maybe how many of you are feeling right now in terms of being in the center as a brand and just feeling all of these different legislations, these abbreviations of the CSRD, DPP, CSDDD, etc., really hitting us and really just being a very overwhelming situation to be in. And I've also taken the liberty to sort of put in the different kind of impacts that this will have. So one thing is the legislation, but what does this actually mean? Which type of data do we then need to collect, and which type of business do we then need to conduct ourselves with? Now, as a person having been in the industry for a long time, I know that this is a very big paradigm shift for all of us. So when I started in the industry about 15 years ago, we didn't really have the impact that we have today. So back then it was perfectly fine to just put supplied by supplier, locally sourced. We didn't know, or we didn't need to know, where all of our things came from. We didn't talk about certifications. We didn't talk about data and an information load that needed to be done. So it was very much, it's very much a different way of looking today. It's very much a different way of seeing the industry today. The textile industry is really being impacted by all of these different legislations and trickle down effect from the EU. Now, how we see it as, of course, a tech industry, and I think my coming guests will, of course, also agree to this fact, is that what all of this has shown us is that we're not really going to be able to survive all of this impact of the legislation and the different requirements if technical solutions aren't a part of it. It is very difficult to be able to actually get to where we want to be without any technical solutions, and for the technical solutions to, of course, coexist and collaborate together. Because we are really faced with this data revolution. I remember back when sustainability reporting became more of a marketing tool. It became sort of a way of showing where are we. So it was a sort of a branding exercise together with a communication exercise, where you as a company could use ESG as a way of saying how are we working, both internally and externally, but not necessarily a requirement. So it was more along the lines of just basically showing something, but not within standards and not within having to comply with any sort of regulations. And then, of course, we have seen the CSRD hitting us afterwards, maybe not directly, but again, with the trickle down effect, we are seeing it hitting quite a lot of brands, small to medium to large, because in a sense, it does really mean that the data requirements are just pushed down the supply chain, pushed down for them to be able to deliver that, and for them who are asking for it to be able to report on those facts. So it does really have an impact on the whole industry as of now. And the final thing that we're definitely going to see, which is going to entail an even more detailed in terms of data points, in terms of information, is this digital twin that we're looking at, and that we're waiting on these delegated acts to ensure that, or to show us what will actually be the requirements from the EU. Because it will be different whether or not we look at batteries or something like that. And then, of course, the textile industry, there is a vast difference of what we can require in terms of digital information. And that's what we're waiting on now. And it will require an even more granular detail of your products. So it is, in a sense, it is about mapping the data points. It is ensuring that we look at the data, we look at the transparency, the circularity, and the environmental impact of our products, and start already now to collect those data points to be able to know this firstly. A lot of brands keep asking me sort of, where do we start? What is our starting point here, because we cannot get to the goal before we've actually solved other things as well. And one of the things I keep on saying is that the easiest solution is actually the QR code. The hard part of it is ensuring that you have the data to back up and to be in that QR code. So my recommendation is always to start there, to start by actually collecting more information on your products, looking at the circularity aspects of your products, which compositions, how are we designing our products for reassembly or for recyclability? Do we know all of our suppliers? How far down can we get in the supply chain? How much information can we get from them? And then, of course, environmental impact. In terms of environmental impact, it is very much about, well, what impact do my products have? What do they consist of? You know, what am I composing my products of, and what does that have of an impact in the environment? And I think that's also really much the hardest one. Fortunately, there is a lot of different tools that are able to help you in terms of measuring it, but the measurement stems from the data points. The measurement stems from the information you can get on your products. So that's again where you have to start. And of course, just a brief about who we are in Delogue, because one of the things that we, of course, focus a lot on is these data points. We are a development tool in terms of creating products. So we see ourselves as a platform where you begin your journey of which products am I creating and what do they consist of, the bill of material, the measurement charts, etc. So really just a platform where you can build your products, think about how you're building your products, and go from there. So without further ado, and just introducing my two guests, of course, is to dive into this matter and dive into how is this handled by the brand, and how are other tools together with Delogue, of course, trying to help these brands navigate this new paradigm shift that we're in. So let me introduce Grant from Lollys Laundry. Welcome, Grant. Thank you so much for joining me today. And of course, Nadine from tex.tracer, one of our very trusted partners. Lovely to have you with us today, Nadine. So
thank you so much.
So I would like to just maybe, first of all, if you could both introduce yourself, your role in the companies, how long have you been there, and yeah, just a focus point in your journeys in your companies.
Nadine, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much for the introduction, Anja. And so my name is Nadine. I'm working as a business development manager at tex.tracer for about 1.5 years now. I have a background in the textile and sustainability industry. So that's basically the foundation of my role. And I'm also focusing on the Danish market. So I'll be there every month. So also excited to see you next week, Anja and Grant. Copenhagen. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nadine. And Grant, if you could say a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I lead the sustainability here at Lollys Laundry. I have a background in production and design a little bit from my time in London and my time at other brands in Copenhagen. And I've been at Lollys Laundry now for almost a year. Feels like it's gone so quickly.
That's right. It always does, I feel. All right, so let's maybe just dive into a couple of questions. Now I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so we can just have a chat. All right, perfect. So I want to start off by just diving into sort of this tech stack, because as already mentioned, it is sort of building and trying to get ready with your tech stack and trying to figure out the right solutions. Which tech stack am I supposed to use? Now, Grant, you have of course had Delogue, or have Delogue, and you've chosen as well to start off with tex.tracer. So can you tell us a bit about sort of, you know, the choice of that, and of course, how is this going to help you in terms of building your tech stack?
Absolutely. I mean, I went through so many different options in meetings, discussing with different companies about what they could offer. And at the end of the day, tex.tracer just came and they were the full package. And I got to meet Nadine, and she was so passionate about what she was talking about that really it felt very much at ease. But I think the most important thing to remember is that when you're choosing one of these providers, that at the end of the day, this is a place where you're going to store all of that primary data. And tex.tracer and Delogue, they work so well simultaneously because you can get such a fantastic overview of all of this primary data that you're collecting. And then you can use this data in order to like cross-compare and then stay up to date with this upcoming legislation. And the amazing thing about tex.tracer, Nadine, Alex, whoever you decide to work with, is that they're so knowledgeable about this upcoming legislation that they keep you up to date, and they almost tailor the use of the software system to your specific needs and requirements.
That's really nice. And I think also you're tapping into something that's very much a headache for many of the brands out there, is sort of navigating this whole landscape of legislation, right? It's sort of a mess right now, and you feel like you need that help in the process, right?
You absolutely definitely need that help in the process. I mean, when I first started, because my background isn't actually deep in sustainability, this is something that I was just passionate about, that I decided to move forward with because I really care about our environment and the products that we create. So it was very much something that I was just like, okay, so where can we go with this? How can we best move forward with this data? And also, like, how do we stay compliant? What rules apply to us? Like, because obviously it's dependent on the size of your company.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Nadine, in terms of, let's dive into then how you as tex.tracer enable fashion brands to achieve that supply chain traceability. How do you do it? How do you go about it? Maybe also a bit about, you know, where do you start? Taking laundry as an example, of course.
So tex.tracer is a SaaS platform designed to create transparency in the full supply chain from raw material to the finished product. So we actually collect product and supply chain data from the primary source, which means connecting with the suppliers, and that data we can actually verify, adding time and geolocation stamps, peer-to-peer reviews, and blockchain technology. This data allows you then to act and improve on it on both social and environmental aspects, and then you can communicate it. So how we actually help is that at first you can comply with legislation, but also reduce the workload, since we can integrate with also other systems and streamline and automate the process. How we then actually do it is it's a good question. So we have 5 steps in a way. So it first starts with data collection, supply chain insights, certifications, compliance documents, ESG data, footprint data. So we can gather a lot of data. Then the second step is that we actually verify the data if it's reliable, increase the reliability. So we add then again time and geolocation stamps, peer-to-peer reviews, and blockchain technology. We use it to notarize the data. Based on the data, then you can analyze. So that's also where Grant is focusing on. Analyze your supply chain and create a strategy how you can act and improve on it. And that's the next step. So you can actually identify your risks and improve your supply chain based on verified data. And then the final step is that you can communicate it either via digital product passport on product, but also on the web shop, but also via extended reporting to comply with, for example, the CSRD. So these are the various phases where we help fashion brands in actually.
And maybe dive into a bit about, because I know that Grant is and Lollys Laundry is sort of in the beginning stages in terms of getting tex.tracer onboarded into your system. How has that been? How has the work been, both from your side, and maybe Grant can substitute as well in some information here?
I mean, it has been great, really great. And I think the basis is there that as a company, you have to be motivated and committed to work with us and to actually get data in the supply chain. So it's really a strategic decision. And then you need to be, as a company, motivated, but also as the employees. And Grant is such a great example because he's so dedicated and eager and motivated to on this project. So together with the suppliers, he can actually get a lot of data. So we're working now for 3 months together, and Grant is actually overperforming the goals that we initially set. So that's amazing. Yeah, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, Grant, already.
Yeah, I mean, like Nadine's saying, I mean, it's all about teamwork, and definitely working with Nadine, and then also working with Alex, who is our right hand within tex.tracer. Because when you started, you don't actually realize how, because obviously you've got your tier 1 data, which is all of your suppliers, but then when you start to get past and you get into their suppliers and their suppliers, collecting that data and also keeping it regular and verifying it is actually a lot more difficult than you would ever imagine. And then you've obviously got all of the compliance documents that you put in tex.tracer as well. And all of this goes towards that digital product passport. So, I mean, very much like it's been fantastic to work with tex.tracer and obviously with you guys at Delogue as well, because you're also knowledgeable about what to do, and also your systems streamline the process so much that it is kind of like a plug and play. And as long as you can talk within your supply chain and get them on board, then it becomes easier and easier to get that data and put it into these systems and stay up to date with the legislation that's approaching us.
Yeah. Maybe also tapping into that, because I think many are also facing those challenges in terms of both internally, but of course also supply chain. Can you maybe, Grant, elaborate a bit on internal challenges, first of all, to say, well, you've got Delogue, you've got tex.tracer, and maybe other platforms as well. What are the challenges here? You know, what are the challenges internally to get everybody on board in that?
I think the challenges internally definitely are that this is such, I mean, it shouldn't be a new way of working. This is a way of working that should have been in play right from the beginning. But at the end of the day, for a lot of people working in this industry, this is a brand new way of working. So I think getting your team not necessarily on board, because everyone is willing and wanting to do the work, but I think it is about changing those thought processes and getting them to align with a different, new, modified way of working, which actually a lot of people don't realize. They think of it as this massive struggle. When they're starting up, they think of it like, oh, but what do I have to do? Like, oh, but this is so much extra work. When actually it's not extra work. If you actually adhere to these processes and systems and way of working, it is, again, plug and play, because it is very much like streamlined and effective. And then that means when you're faced with these upcoming legislations in the future that are coming towards you, that you can be like, okay, yes, I have that data for you. Let me just go into my systems and pull that out and then hand that over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that that of course both Delogue and tex.tracer is also really focused on is this collaborative in terms of the supply chain.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the we know that the data isn't something that we're going to make up. We're not going to invent it ourselves. We need the data from our supply chains, and the collaborations both in Delogue and tex.tracer is such a fundamental idea of the platforms. We need them to be on board and just to ensure that they can deliver what we need. Has that been challenging both in Delogue and of course also tex.tracer?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily been challenging. I'd say what the main challenge has been is what I faced is the actual supply chain itself, because they want to understand why do you need this? Because they're still very much in the old mentality of thinking, they're like, what do you want this information for? Are you going to be contacting the people within our supply chain? And it's very much getting them to understand that, no, this is as much for our safety as it is for your safety. And getting them to understand how to use the system. I mean, definitely the people within Lollys Laundry's direct supply chain, getting them to upload that data into Delogue or into tex.tracer, they've been very willing, very wanting to do this. They've been very much like eager to learn, to stay relevant and to stay up to date with the way these processes are. And now it's about getting that next layer, because what we have discovered together is that once you get below those initial suppliers, it actually becomes a little bit more difficult in terms of how much technology these facilities have, because some of them, I mean, as I've actually learned, they actually don't have computers. So they don't actually know how to upload this data. So that's a current struggle that we're facing. So how can we get their data into both Delogue and tex.tracer?
Yeah.
Can you make something? I'm sorry.
No. I was gonna ask Nadine as well, so just maybe add a bit of that as well in your terms of from your side.
Yeah, exactly. So the two founders of tex.tracer, they both have a background in the textile industry. So also they both lived in the Far East, so we know the supplier side of this as well. So what Grant just mentioned is something that we're constantly working on. How can we make it as simple as possible so the suppliers are willing to share data, but also some of them only have a phone or no laptop. So it's also easy to use on their phone. They can do it in bulk, in their own language. So we're always on top of our mind, what is the added value for the suppliers and how can we make it as simple as possible? So that also means that it's free of charge. We have ongoing support, so they can always request meetings or calls or whatever. So even though it's a digital platform, we also have this personal touch, which is quite important in the industry.
And I can absolutely verify that. Like, tex.tracer would be absolutely amazing in terms of if I want a meeting or a supplier wants a meeting or anything like this, they've immediately been there the next day. It's like, yeah, of course, we'll help you. And that's what's so great about this collaboration. It is so much that personal touch.
Which is so important as well in navigating again, back to sort of navigating everything, is to just know that there are people there around you to help you in the process, right?
Definitely, absolutely.
Yeah. So Nadine, maybe just can you dive into a bit about, adding tex.tracer in the tech stack? What do you see as sort of the key benefits from for Lollys Laundry and other brands to adding tex.tracer into the tech stack?
I mean, yeah, it's a good question because the tech stack will become or is essential nowadays. Yeah. And what we see is that a lot of fashion brands already have an ERP and a PLM system, but also to comply with legislation and to prepare yourself to future-proof your business, you need a third system, which is a transparency platform. So that's crucial. But for those systems, they have to communicate with one another so that the data flows and streamlines seamlessly in all platforms. So therefore, an integration is quite nice. So we can ensure that the data flows. And I know integrations often are quite complex, and I wouldn't say it's easy, but tex.tracer is built on an open structure, so we can easily integrate with your current tech stack. So this means whether more like a soft or simple integration via a secure FTP in which we can already pull data from Excel files, for example, or full integration. So we are experienced in that part as well. But coming back to the benefits, the data flows through all the systems, and I think that's the key benefit of all.
Definitely, yeah, I totally get it. And Grant, just also diving into the importance for Lollys Laundry to start working with transparency and CSR and everything that sort of you have as a task in Lollys Laundry. How has that been so important? How important is that for Lollys Laundry as of now? And, for your business, of course, but also to prepare.
I mean, definitely. I mean, in terms of transparency anyway, like I think it's vital that you understand all the different points of your supply chain. And I think having that transparency is important. I mean, even if you're not using it for sustainability purposes, knowing what's going on is vital. Because also then you can identify potential risks and potential areas for improvement, and you can use this data to stay up to date with regulatory compliance. And then you can also collaborate and innovate within your supply chain and work with your suppliers in order to improve on these processes to move forward for the future, because this isn't something that is going to be fixed within the next 5 years. This is going to be a continuous, ongoing development process. So I definitely think that it's vital for that, for the future of brands.
Yeah. And Nadine, can you maybe elaborate a bit on not only Lollys Laundry, but just in general, how do you see the industry in terms of prioritizing this in their, you know, daily work and their strategies out there?
I mean, as I said before, it will be part of your tech stack, so it has to be part of your processes as well.
Yeah.
In a way, if you want to comply with legislation, and I mean, you have to. If you want to do it manually, it will increase the workload. It's time-consuming, costly, and you have to hire 10 extra employees.
Yeah.
So in a way, a transparency platform can really help you because the data collection and verification, specifically the verification of the data, is partly automated and streamlined. So you can actually focus on analyzing and improving the supply chain based on the data that we've gathered, instead of a full-time job gathering all the data points, and then you're at the end of the year, you can make a nice report, but you cannot do anything with it. So I think that's the main objective here. Yeah.
And Grant, can you maybe also share a bit of examples in terms of that, how Lollys Laundry has worked with Delogue and tex.tracer to do this, yeah, to get going?
Very much where, I mean, obviously, Lollys Laundry has worked with Delogue since before I arrived, but they used it more as a developmental system for all of the styles. But when I came, it was very much a case of looking and seeing like, oh, but we can actually use it to record all of the various components within our styles, so the buttons, the threads and whatnot. And now we can see all the way back in all of our styles what each individual part plays in the role of our sustainable future. And then also now, starting with tex.tracer, we have now got this brilliant overview of the production line. And we're starting to see further back where these garments have been in that journey that it's played all the way up to now our warehousing. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And yep, so Nadine, what steps should brands take to ensure they maximize their value of tex.tracer? What do you think the steps that they should go through to sort of really use it in the right way?
I mean, I think at the very beginning, it's all preparation is key to maximize the value. And coming back to it, the company itself needs to be committed and motivated to actually work on this. So it's not when you start with tex.tracer, magically all the data is there and you can comply. That would be wonderful, but it's just not the case. So it's a strategic decision to work with tex.tracer, and you're really the example, the role model for your supplier. So because you're the one asking the questions, in the end, motivation is for us really the key to success. Sorry. How then actually works? Okay, you have to set a strategy. You have to choose your tech stack, as what we said before. But then the next step is you have to start. What Grant also mentioned before. It's not that you have to prepare all the data, that you have to get all the data up front. That's where the platform will help you. So step by step, we will get more data from your supply chain and get your supply chain more and more transparent. So that's also where our expertise comes in. Our team here in Amsterdam, but also our partner liaison offices in both India and China are here to support you on your path towards sustainability and transparency. Both for you, but also again the supplier. So for them, it's on top. They're on top of our minds. We support them along the way, again, free of charge in their own language. It's really what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
Also, considering another important topic, I believe, is that now you're developing probably collections 2026, and the deadline of the DPP, for example, is in 2027. So you have to calculate the time that you have to gather all these data points, but not only for you, but also for the suppliers. But because you cannot just ask all the questions at the very end and then believe that the suppliers have all the answers. So also for them, you need to give them time to adapt to this new situation, so that they can have an easy and smooth transition, and then at the end you can all comply together. But I think their collaboration is key, and you have to really make sure that you define your timeline on when you would like to have all the data ready, and then move backwards and see when you should start. So
yeah, I think I really feel like you're tapping into something that's so important, you know, but like we also mentioned in terms of the importance of the suppliers, you know, they are the key to us, for us to solve this, and of course technical solution to be able to deliver all of this data and help in that process. I think that's such a vital part of the work that Grant as well is doing with his suppliers for Lollys Laundry. And maybe just turning that one around in terms of sort of the ethical part of this, working with your suppliers, because I think we can talk about responsible buying practices and everything, but I also think when we look at all of the things that we are asking our suppliers for, what do you think that has an impact, Grant, in terms of Lollys Laundry? Is it positive in the end for the suppliers, or you know, how do you feel that works for them and the process taking them through it?
I definitely think, I mean, it's positive in the end. I mean, obviously, always at the start, people are reluctant for change.
Yeah.
I mean, people never feel like change is a good thing.
No.
But certainly the feedback, I mean, I've had 3 suppliers last week all say to me, thank you so much for introducing us to this system, because they realize how easy it is once they get over the training wheel steps of becoming integrated with the system. They very much appreciate that now it is streamlining the whole process.
Yeah.
And I've got some suppliers that are amazing in tex.tracer. Now I have one supplier from India who is absolutely brilliant. I mean, he's gone out, he's updated all of his factory certifications. He's eager to learn more. He wants to know how he can be better so that he can become one of those gold A-star suppliers of ours in the future. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's fantastic.
That's really amazing. I think also that sort of shows that they also can see the benefit of them working with all of these different technical solutions, because they maybe even have sort of a competitive advantage of actually engaging with these solutions, right?
I mean, I was expecting the whole onboarding process to take much longer than it did, but I mean, we have 23 suppliers at Lollys Laundry across the world, and out of those 23, 20 are fully onboarded now. Like fully onboarded, working on their PO chains. Like it's brilliant to see.
And that's, I think, only the contractual partners, right? So your tier 1 suppliers. So if I can add on there that you're also already invited tier 2, 3, and 4 suppliers in the platform, in which also many are already onboarded, and our team is dedicated to onboard all of them. So we're only 3 months working together. So it's you're really overperforming here, but it's also great to show that it is possible to get data in the supply chain. Yeah,
it's absolutely possible. I think people need to, obviously it's natural to be scared, and it's natural to be worried, and it's natural to be like, because obviously we don't know what's in our supply chain that far back. Like, so it is a learning process for everyone, but seeing these suppliers be so eager to work with this system, and then obviously, I mean, I updated the supplier compliance documents as well, like in terms of the RSL list and whatnot, and then the new code of conduct that we have. And more or less everyone signed it already, and they're asking questions, and they want to know how they can improve and how they can proceed into the future.
I think that's also the very first step. What we see is that you will discover the network beyond your tier 1 suppliers at first, and then afterwards the data that you gather empowers you to have a dialogue with your suppliers. So what we see is that a lot of our clients have discovered things in their supply chain that they wouldn't be able to discover without digital solutions like tex.tracer. So that actually creates meaningful impact and insights. Yeah.
That also must have an impact in terms of the development of the product, right? I think looking into where does it come from? Where does my components come from? Maybe we look at how do we actually then develop our products? How do we look at, if we go back to the circular principles, etc., how can we start to actually incorporate that in our design phase, development phase, etc., to both make it easier in terms of mapping and tex.tracer, but maybe also even in impacting the design phase, right?
Yeah.
100%.
I think that's also what we envision as partners.
Yeah, exactly.
Having this bidirectional integration, so it means that we don't only pull data from you, but we also push data back. So that at the beginning of the design phase, you already have data, the supply chain, and also the impact, for example.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
And it's already data that we are taking at Lollys and feeding into the design team for the development of this, because we are starting 26.1 now.
Yeah.
So already we're giving this data to our design team and telling them, like, okay, so if you look at these particular fabrics, you can see that these are all developed and come from one area, so that we can use this in the future in order to prevent the overconsumption of carbon emissions when it comes to the transport of those textiles and everything. So we can very much deep dive into that data and then already utilize it now moving forward.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because that really has an impact on everything, right? Yeah. Just having the clarity of your supply chain then basically has an impact on everything in terms of your development and your production, of course. That's amazing.
And we can update that information in Delogue, and then the design team has that data at their fingertips ready for the development of the next collection without even me having to be involved.
No, which is quite nice. I mean, I think, I think many are facing the CSR role, the CSR manager role, or whichever role title that every person has, like you, Grant, in a company. They are overloaded at the moment, in terms of the knowledge that you have to have, the impact you have to have on the company, everything. You basically have to have an insight in, which maybe brings me to my final question. And again, just to mention the Q&A, if anybody has any questions for Grant and Nadine or myself, just let us know. But maybe just, Grant, first of all, you could give some inputs to what people listening in today, what should they think about? What should they take away from today? What can you give us of some good advice?
I think very much I wish somebody would have told me right at the beginning when I started this that it's not a sprint.
Yeah.
It's a marathon. Gathering that data and putting that data into the system, it's not something, I mean, obviously it's something that you have to be doing now. It's something that you have to be doing step by step. But just start from, I started on one of our smaller collections, just gathering that data, understanding the various components, and just preparing it and putting it into the background and just having everything ready for when you need to be compliant. So I think, my advice would be, don't panic. Everyone's in the same boat as you. Some people are further ahead, some people are much further behind. But I think it's just important to remember, take your time, develop that relationship with your supply chain, talk with the people, and you'll get there in the end.
Yeah. What about you, Nadine? Any last advice you can give from you?
I mean, coming back to it's better to start sooner than later, specifically for you guys as brands, but also for your suppliers. It's our expertise to help you along the way. So what we do is we don't immediately ask all the 100 questions, like Grant just mentioned, it's a marathon. So we would just ask certain questions and then add on, and then create more transparency in the whole supply chain. So that's how we see ourselves. I mean, it's a solid foundation that data collection and verification is the basis, and analyzing and acting and improve on it will be the next step. So that's also what we see as tex.tracer, that we will expand the reporting functionalities, add even more value to the platform so that you can comply. Our primary goal is always to make things easy, and I think that's exactly where you're also focusing on at Delogue. So it's just create a strategy for yourself, but also you have to start, and you don't have to know everything. A lot of our clients maybe only know their tier 1 suppliers. Some of them work with a lot of agents, so they don't even know their contractual partners. So it doesn't matter. We can help you along the way. It's just for you to take the first step is super important, and to make a timeline for yourself by when you would like to have all data in place. And that should be 2027 at least for the digital product passport, but yeah, it depends on the company. So yeah.
I think I hear both of you saying, let's, get started and don't panic.
Exactly, yeah.
Panicking gets you nowhere. It's good for the end sprint, but at the end of the day, it gets you nowhere.
No, exactly. That makes no sense. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I don't have any questions in the Q&A, so I'm assuming that we have basically answered any questions. I just, as a final thing, I just want to do a bit of promo for the other webinars that we have. So we always have approximately 2 or 3 webinars each month. Next week, we are going to dive into basically the same for anyone that wants it in German. My dear colleague Aisha will dive into this data requirements in German. So she's going to do that on Thursday next week. And then, of course, as always, we have each month, we have Delogue Uncovered, which is Q&A with myself and Pernille. And there we basically just sit ready for you guys. If you have any questions on our platform, or just for me in terms of ESG or anything related to that, tune into that one and give us your questions on that. And finally, I just want to thank both you, Nadine and Grant. It was a pleasure, as always, to have you join me. Yeah, until next time, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.